He said that the judges of the LA Superior Court, and Yaffe included, had a visceral hatred towards me, that they have revenge towards me, and everything that was done to get me, and that Yaffe should have never even been sitting on this case. I then again went in to the California Supreme Court to get the disbarment voided out. Once again, the State Bar did not oppose the motion, and once again, the California Supreme Court ended up denying the motion. Now there's a rule, it's 8.54C of the California Rules of Court that says when a motion is unopposed, it may be deemed that the other has consented to have it granted. That shows you how really crooked these people are. That gives you that particular part of the idea. Now, let's talk about these particular payments. What happened is that the payments were held to be illegal and unconstitutional in a case called Sturgeon versus the County of Los Angeles, where it said that the payments violate Article 6, Section 19 of the California Constitution. Right after that happened, the judges, through the California Judicial Council and the California Judges Association, went to the legislature and they got a bill passed called SB-X 211. The bill said that the payments that the judges were receiving starting from July 2008 could be made. And the bill also said in Section 5 that any payments that the judges were given retroactive immunity from criminal prosecution, civil liability, and disciplinary action for all the payments that they got that which were illegal beforehand. And the people that gave them the payments got the retroactive immunity. So now you have the legislature going in and saying that the payments were illegal and criminal because they're giving them the retroactive immunity from the criminal payments. So that's from the state. Now what about these payments with respect to somebody who's appearing in front of a judge, paying them off? Canon 4D1 of the Code of Judicial Ethics says that a judge cannot accept a payment from anyone who's appearing in front of them or likely to appear in front of them. United States law says, 18 U.S.C. 1346, the intangible right to honest services, says a judge cannot take a payment from somebody. It's a bribe. Now you have cases called U.S. versus Adams, U.S. versus Malthus, U.S. versus Frago, where good old Judge Adams took payments from a lawyer and a car dealer who was appearing in front of him. And those cases hold that under the California bribery statute, this was a bribe, and he was guilty of the intangible right, violating the intangible right for honest services. So our judges who are taking these payments are violating the federal law. Now, Article 6, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution says that the state judges must follow federal law. So you have your state judges who are taking these payments, irrespective of what the state might be feeling and everything else, are violating the federal law right now. Now, a second case came up, which was called Sturgeon 2, in which they challenged SB-X 211. And the court came down and said, no, the payments are still illegal under Article 6, Section 19, but the temporary payments, these payments are a temporary solution until the legislature figures out a new solution. Now, that was 2010. We're at 2013, legislature has done nothing. Now, SB-X 211 was passed unanimously, with the exception of 3 votes, by the entire state Senate, the entire state assembly, and good old Governor Schwarzenegger signed it. So that gives you the idea of where we are sitting at. Now, most recently, there was a case challenging these payments, and the case was Goebel versus Fuller. It just came down on March 7th in the 4th Appellate District third Division 3, where 3 judges who received these illegal payments came in and decided that the payments were okay. Now, interestingly enough, Goebel challenged these judges and he said, look, you, judge number 1, you were sitting as a Superior Court judge, you got the payments in Orange County. Number 2, you were sitting at this time. Number 3, you were sitting at this time. Judges refused to recuse themselves. Then they went in and they lied. Now that case is going to go up to the California Supreme Court, and then it's going to go into the federal court, and these judges are going to get the you-know-what suit out of them. But this gives you an idea of how corrupt things are. Now, 30 of the 58 counties in California make illegal payments to the judges. And according to the report that came out in 2009 from the Judicial Council, that represents 90% of the Superior Court judges in California. Now, when you take the people who are Superior Court judges that became appellate court judges, you're dealing probably in another 90-some-odd%. And then when you take it up to the California Supreme Court, you're dealing with 4 out of the 7, and with Baxter being the 5th one who wrote SBX 211. Now that includes the new Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court. And the old Supreme Court included Ronald George and Moreno, who resigned. By the way, Ronald George resigned right after Yaffe resigned, when it turned out that Yaffe, had made the illegal order. So that gives you an idea of how really corrupt we are. Now, what can you do? I told you the one thing. The other thing, if you run into a judge who is sitting on your case, and your case has anything whatsoever to do with the county that is making these payments, you just say to the judge, Judge, do you have anything you have to tell me? The judge says, no. The judge, getting payments from the county? The judge says, yes. Well, Judge, under Canon 3E2, you have to disclose anything that might be relevant to this case, whether you think it's relevant or not. He said, well, and Judge, under 3E1, you have to disqualify yourself if you're violating the law. And under Code of Civil Procedure, section 170.1A6 and III, those are 3 small i's, you're disqualified if a reasonable person thinks that you can't be objective. So Judge, you're out. Get out of my case. Now, another thing is that if you have a case against the county, or the county was involved even as a witness, and any one of these judges who did this was sitting on that case, under California Code of Civil Procedure 473D, you bring a motion to void out his decision. And that motion can be brought at any time because the judge committed fraud upon the court. And he was disqualified from the very beginning. And there's a case called Rusco that holds that. So those are the things if you have the cases. But now I'm going to take you back to where we started. And that is, many of you may not have had these cases. But how are we going to clean up the system? And I'm speaking to you now as a political body. You go in to your Board of Supervisors and you say, cut out the payments. And then you go in, and the same time you say, pass the ordinance that any judge who's received these payments or receiving them can't sit as a judge in this county. And they say, well, we can't do that because the state controls the judges. I say, yes, you can, because you can stop them from sitting in your county. They can go sit somewhere else. Send them to another county. Well, if you do this in all the counties, these judges are out. we may be sitting with some lame duck judges who have no place to sit, but that's okay too, because then the pressure's going to be on them to resign. So that is where we are.
We'll be right back to Richard Fine. Just in case you're one of those legal beagles that want to follow this case, it's an LA case. It's 09-56073. And Richard Fine is now in a position to sue the bastards, I mean the honorable judges of the crooked courts of Los Angeles. But we should also point out that the state bar is now admitting they were wrong to disbar him. And there's something going on at that. So, I mean, I like this guy. He did no crime. He saved the taxpayers $1 billion. He exposed corruption in the state legislature and in the Los Angeles Judicial District, and they put him in jail for 18 months. It reminds me of what my brother, Dr. Nick Wagener, used to say, "No good deed will go unpunished." True enough, Satan runs this world. People like Orly Tates, the fact checker, and Richard Fine, the corruption exposer, never got their due. The LA Times was right across the street from where we were holding a protest. They could have stepped outside the door and taken a picture and done a story. They didn't say boo. The whole corporate media is worthless as far as I'm concerned. But you're not watching corporate media. Anyway, I want to let Richard Fine finish. The case number, if you want to see that, is 09-56073.
The pressure's going to be on them to resign. So that is where we're at. And that's how you skin the cat when somebody is controlling the system. See, they think that they have the system under control. Because I'm going to leave you with a couple of things here. With respect to impeachment, because you say, well, we could impeach the judges. Out of the 31,500 state court judges in the United States from the history of the time that you've had state court judges, not one of them has ever been impeached. Now, 39 states elect judges. And those judges basically win because nobody runs against them. In California, if nobody registers to run against a judge automatically is put in. Many states have laws that say that the legislature can remove a judge. Judges have never been removed by the legislature. In the federal system, 17 judges have been impeached. 3 of them resigned before they were voted out by the Senate, and 14 have actually been voted out. Now, on federal judges who have accepted, shall we say, illegal payments, the most recent impeachment came with a judge in New Orleans who took illegal money from people that were in front of him. That's the same situation with federal judges that are sitting here who've taken money from LA County or some of the other counties. Nobody has gone after them, and chances are that these judges haven't even disclosed it during their hearings.
We'll be right back to Richard Fine. Just in case you're one of those legal beagles that want to follow this case, it's an LA case. It's 09-56073. And Richard Fine is now in a position to sue the bastards, I mean the honorable judges of the crooked courts of Los Angeles. But we should also point out that the state bar is now admitting they were wrong to disbar him. He did no crime. He saved the taxpayers $1 billion. He exposed corruption in the state legislature and in the Los Angeles Judicial District, and they put him in jail for 18 months. It reminds me of what my brother, Dr. Nick Wagener, used to say, "No good deed will go unpunished." True enough, Satan runs this world. People like Orly Tates, the fact checker, and Richard Fine, the corruption exposer, never got their due. The LA Times was right across the street from where we were holding a protest. They could have stepped outside the door and taken a picture and done a story. They didn't say boo. The whole corporate media is worthless as far as I'm concerned. But you're not watching corporate media. Anyway, I want to let Richard Fine finish. The case number, if you want to see that, is 09-56073.